Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So thank you all for joining in for our Bhagavad Gita TLC study. We'll start with the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Udapatakamelam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Arjana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnu Padhaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gauradishe Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tarale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripatamam Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. So Dandavat Pranams to all the devotees. We'll start with Bhagavad Gita today. We are on chapter number 5 entitled Action in Krishna Consciousness, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So we've been studying in this chapter how we need to perform our work, our Swadharma. In what consciousness do we need to perform our work? So as to understand our constitutional position and perform it with sthira buddhi, vivasayatmika buddhi ekaha kurunandana. With sthira buddhi or with fixed intelligence, we want to work for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And who can do such a thing? Only somebody who is na shochati na kankshati, right? Somebody who does not lament for things that have been lost, or one who does not hanker for things that one does not have, knowing very well that everyone has been accorded certain things according to their karma. According to their karma, whatever is due to them, it will come to them. So there is no need to shochati na kankshati, right? There's no need to lament or to hanker. That's what is given by Prabhupada. In the purport to 5.20, Prabhupada says, only such a person who is a self-realized person, who does not lament for things he does not have, who does not hanker for things lost, only such a person can be engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, and only such a person can perform his duty as a matter of duty, without any expectation of results. Okay, so let's move forward. Text number 5.21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhayasparsheshu Shaktatma Vindatyatmani Sukham Sa Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Sukham Akshanayam Ashnute. So running over to a translation. Anyone wants to read? Okay, Harjeet Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Mataji.
Translation: such a liberated person is not.
Mataji, please read the synonyms, word to word meaning.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna. In external sense pleasure. Ashakta Atma, one who is not attached. Vindati, enjoys. Atmani, in the self. Yat, that which. Sukham, happiness. Sa, he. Brahma, yoga, by concentration in Brahman. Yukta Atma, self-connected. Sukham, happiness. Akshayam, unlimited. Ashnati, enjoys. Translation: Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure but is always in trance enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self realized person enjoys unlimited happiness for he concentrates on the Supreme.
Purport.
Purport. Sri Yamunacharya, a great devotee in Krishna consciousness, said, Mataji, I won't be able to read
Yat
this one.
yat avadi mama cheta Krishna padhara vinde nava nava rasadhamani udyatam vrantumasit tad avati batanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukha vikarah sushtu nishtivanam cha.
Hari Bol. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him. Whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distaste. A person in Brahma Yoga or Krishna consciousness is so absorbed in the loving service of the Lord that he loses his taste for material sense pleasure altogether. The highest pleasure in term of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell, and materialistics cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with great vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the test in the spiritual relation. Spiritual relation and sex pleasure go ill together. A Krishna conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being liberated soul. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So why is a Krishna conscious person liberated soul? Because he's not attached to either the positive results or the negative results, right? And Prabhupada is also talking here about puna punas charvita charvananam, right? We think that certain things will give pleasure to us in this life, and we want to engage in that again and again, right? But what does it give? It entangles us more and more in the entanglement of birth, death, disease, and old age. So how do we come out of this? How do we come out of this cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age? Right? Simply by following the regulative principles. What are the 4 regulative principles? No meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. This will bring us to the platform of becoming a human being. And from there, from becoming a human being, then we chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We live our life according to the Dharma. That means we live according to the principles of Bhagavad Gita. When we do all of that, then we come to the point of liberation. Right? The more we think that this world can give us pleasure, the more we will get entangled. Right? The more we understand Param Drishtva Nivartate. That means if I engage in the service of the Lord, then automatically my senses will be satisfied. That is the best way to satisfy one's senses. One will feel blissful when the Lord is blissful. When the Lord feels blissful, being satisfied by our service, then automatically we will also feel blissful. And that is a formula, right? All the other kinds of sense pleasure or the pleasure in this world will only result in misery. Next verse is going to talk about Ehi samsparacha jaboga dukkha yona evate. It's going to result in misery. Why? Because adi antamanta kaunteya. Because even if there is happiness, then what happens? It has a beginning and it has an end. When it ends, what happens? Misery starts. And what is this happiness? This happiness in itself is absence of misery. Adi antavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. Na teshu means a devotee or a Krishna conscious person or an intelligent person will not relish in such kind of pleasure, knowing well that they have a beginning and an end. Yeah. Okay, let's move ahead. Text number 22. Okay, Shobha Mataji, go ahead.
Pranams Mataji, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adi antaha kaunteya natesu ramate buddha. Synonyms and translation is Vedanta Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ye those, hey, certainly samsparshaha, by contact with the material senses, bhogaha, enjoyments, dukkhaha, distress, yonaha, sources of Eva, certainly they are Adi, beginning, Anta, end, Pantaha, subject to Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, no, never, Teshu, in those. Ramate takes delight. Buddha, the intelligent person. Translation. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana, it is said, Ramate yogino anante satyanante sit atmani iti rama padane padenasho param brahma
Okay.
dhyayate. The mystic derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme personality, absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also 5.5.1, it is said, Nayam Devo Deha Bhaja Bhajam Loke Kashtan Kaman Arhate Vit Bhujam Yetapo Divyam Putraya Putraya Yena Sattvam Shuddhyet Yasmat Brahma Saukyam Anantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Haribol, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Hare Krishna.
Pranam Mother.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So the more we try to enjoy the sense object, to the extent we derive pleasure, to that extent we will also suffer. That's what Prabhupada is saying here. Right? To the extent we are attracted to sense pleasures and we perceive that sense pleasure, to that extent we will suffer. But if we are not attached to any sense object and we know that we just go through the pleasure and pain without being attached to both, that is the best situation to be in. Otherwise, we are addicted to material pleasure. Then, to that extent, when that object is taken away, the amount of pleasure we experience, to that extent, it will go in the reverse order, or it will go in the inverse. To that extent, we will suffer when that particular object is taken away. And it is the nature of the material world. Anything we get, it has to be taken away at some point of time or the other. All right, text number 23. शक्नोति हैव यशोधुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः. Okay, Sudha Mataji, go ahead.
हरे कृष्ण माताजी प्रणाम. शक्नोति हैव यशोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः. Synonyms: Shaknoti is able, Iha ever in the present body, Ya one who, Shodum to tolerate, Prak before, Sharira the body, Vimokshana giving up, Kama desire, Krodha and anger, Udbhavam generated from, Vegam urges, Saha ye, Yukta in trance, Saha he, Sukhi happy, Nara human being. Translation and purport by Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. Purport. If one wants to make steady progress on the path of self-realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are the forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genitals, and forces of the tongue. One who is able to control the forces of all these different senses and the mind is called Goswami or Swami. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forgo altogether the forces of the senses. Material desires, when unsatiated, generate anger, and thus the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. Therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. One who can do this is understood to be self realized and is thus happy in the state of self realization. It is a duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarupashta Vegam, Etan Vegan Yovishaheta Diraha, Sarvam Apimam Prativimsa Sishat. Right? One who is able to control the urges of the tongue, belly, genitals, mind, anger, and tongue. Right? Tongue has two functions we discussed in detail when we studied nectar of instruction also. That the tongue has two functions. One is to vibrate, and the other is to taste nice palatable foodstuffs. So when we try, how do we ensure that we keep our tongue under control? Right? We regulate our intake of prasadam. Right? We eat sanctioned food, what is prescribed for human beings, and then we sanctify it by offering it to the Supreme Lord, and then we regulate it. How do we regulate it? By eating our prasadam at regular intervals of time, like morning breakfast, afternoon lunch, evening tiffin, whatever it is, according to what we have prescribed for ourselves. Like that, we are regulated in our intake of food. It's not that whenever we see anything, we want to eat, right? So we are regulated in the way we are functioning, and when we are regulated, then it actually it makes us control our senses, and that's why it helps us to have a control over our senses. So we dictate to the senses what time I want to eat, what time I should eat prasadam, and not that whatever the external situations or the sense objects will determine what I will do. Right? I don't do things out of desire or anger, but rather I do things out of what I have planned for myself according to the regulations of bhakti. Like this. Okay, let's move forward. To text number 24. Yo antaha sukho antar aramas tatantar jyotirevayah sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto adhigacchati. Okay, Manimala Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
O yo antashukha antaramam tatha antarjati evacha sa yogi brahmo nirvanam brahmo bhutam adhigacchati.
Synonyms.
Yes, one who. He anta sukha, happy from within. Anta arama. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Antaha sukha, happy from within. Antaha means from within.
Yes,
Sukha
Mataji.
means happy. Yeah.
Anta sukha, happy from within. Anta arama, active within. Tatha, tatha, as well as. Anta jyotir, aiming within. Eva, certainly, yeah, anyone. Sa, he, yogi, mystic. Brahma nirvana, liberated in the supreme. Brahma bhuta, self-realized. Abhigacchati, attains. One whose happiness is within, who is active within, who rejoices within and is illuminated within, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme and ultimately he attains the Supreme. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Unless one is able to release happiness from within, how can one retire from external engagement meant for deriving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys by experience. He can there sit silently any place, enjoy the activities of from within. A liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is Brahma Bhuta, in which is assured of going back to Godhead, back to home. Haribol Mat, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah, we discussed this in detail, isn't it? Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. No lamentation, no hankering for material things. Because the mind is firmly fixed on how I can go back home, back to Godhead with that. Okay, text number 25. Rajneesh Prabhu, you want to read?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Labante Brahma Nirvanam.
Brahma Nirvana लभन्ते ब्रह्म निर्वाणम् सुखाया कृष्ण कल्पना छिन्न द्वैधा यतात्मानः सर्वभूतहिते रताः. Translation and purport by Field
Synonyms.
Prabhupada. Labhante, achieve. Brahma Nirvanam, liberation in the Supreme Rasaya, those who are active within. Krishna Kalmasha, who are devoid of all sin. China, having turned off. Devedhya, duality. Yata Atmana, engaged in self-realization. Sarva Bhuta, for all living entities, hide in welfare work. Ratah, engaged. Translation. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of working for working for the working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the supreme purpose. Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in can be said to be engaged. Mataji, ये आगे
You cannot see?
no, I can't see.
What about now?
Only a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness can be said to be engaged in the welfare work for all living entities. When a person is actually in the knowledge that Krishna is the fountainhead of everything, then when he acts in that spirit, he acts for everyone. The sufferings of humanity are due to forgetfulness of Krishna as the supreme enjoyer, the supreme proprietor, and the supreme friend. Therefore, to revive this consciousness within the entire human society is the highest welfare work. One cannot be engaged in such first-class welfare work without being liberated in the supreme. A Krishna conscious person has no doubt about the supremacy of Krishna. He has no doubt because he is completely freed from all state of divine love. A person engaged only in caring to the physical welfare of human society cannot actually help anyone. Temporary relief of the external body and the mind is not satisfactory. The real cause of one's difficulties in the hard struggle for life may be found in one's forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. When a man is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, he is actually a liberated soul, although he may be in a material tabernacle. Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So the difficulties is because of one's forgetfulness of one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When I know that I am a part and parcel of the Lord, I'm working for the benefit of the Lord, I'm working for the pleasure of the Lord, then I don't have any independent propensity to enjoy. When I have nothing to gain or lose, then at that time I'm able to perform my duty irrespective of whether I'm getting success in my endeavor or irrespective of whether I'm getting failure in my endeavor. It does not deter me from performing my duty. Right? I perform my duty irrespective of whether I get success or I get failure. Because knowing well that whatever is the success or the failure shall all pass. Nothing is permanent in this world. Yeah. So with that consciousness, when one works, one is actually situated in the liberated platform. Yeah. Okay, let's move forward. Next verse. Text number 26. Kamakrodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasa abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Okay, now Kishori Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those who are free from anger and all material desires. Okay, Mataji. Kama from desires, krodha and anger, vimuktanam of those who are liberated, yatinam of the saintly persons, yata chetasam who have full control over the mind, bitaha assured in the near future, Brahma Nirvanam, liberation in the supreme Vartate is there, vidita atmanam of those who are self-realized. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplines and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in the striving towards salvation, one who is in Krishna consciousness is the best of all. The Bhagavatam 4.22.39 confirms that these facts as follows. Yada Pankaja, sorry. Mataji, you can recite.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so Bhagavatam 4.22.39. Yatpada pankaj pala savilasa bhaktya karma shayam gratitamudgratayanti santah tadvanna riktamatayo yatayo pirudha shroto ganastamaranam bhaja vasudevam. So this is what is important, bhaja vasudevam in all circumstances. Okay, Mataji, go ahead. Just try to worship.
Thank you, Mataji. Just try to worship in devotional service. Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in the transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. In the conditioned souls, the desire to enjoy the fruitive results of work is so deep-rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires despite great endeavors. A devotee of the Lord constantly engage in the devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect inner self-realization, very quickly attain liberation in the Supreme. Owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he always remains in a trance. The sight and analogous example of these darshana, dhyana. Mataji, can you recite, please?
Yeah. Darshana dhyana samsparshe matsya kurma vihangama swani apatyani pushnanti tataham api padmaja.
Thank you, Mataji. By vision, by meditation, and by touch only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, do I also, O Padmaja. The fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on the land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in the water. Similarly, the devotees in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly. By engagement in the Krishna consciousness, he does not feel the pangs of material miseries. This state of life is called Brahma Nirvana, or the absence of material miseries due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Sorry. Okay. The extent to which we are dependent on the Lord, to that extent, we will not be succumbing to the miseries of life, right? So the more we are attached to something and we are enjoying material things, and then when that material thing is taken away, then only we feel miserable, right? So if we simply perform our duty, like here Prabhupada gives example of how the fish, the tortoise and the birds, they all perform their duty by vision, by meditation and by touch. Like the fish, Prabhupada says, It brings up its offering simply by looking at them. The tortoise simply by meditation, and when the tortoise meditates on its eggs, automatically, the eggs are laid on the land. The tortoise in the water. It just meditates on the eggs, and that's how the offsprings are brought about. And similarly, the birds, how do they maintain their offspring? Right, in the nest, right? So they simply go and get whatever food is there, and then they simply by touch or simply by feeding the bird, even the birds maintain their offspring. Right? So here Prabhupada is saying, similarly, a devotee in Krishna consciousness, simply how is he able to be in connection with the Lord? Just like the tortoise is meditating on the egg in the land and maintaining the offspring. Similarly, we can maintain our Krishna consciousness, although we cannot see the Lord. The Lord is everywhere. Right? The Lord is in Goloka Vrindavan Dham. The Lord is in Archa Vigraha form. The Lord is situated in our heart as Paramatma also. But somehow, because of our attachment to this material world, we are not able to see anything spiritual with our eyes. The Lord has come in the form of Archa Vigraha form also. But even then, when we look at the Archa Vigraha form, sometimes we are not able to look at material. Right? How can the Lord appear in this dhatu, right, or in the metal form, or in the wood form, like that? Right? Sometimes you're not able to believe because we are so much used to perceiving things by our senses only. Right? When somebody talks, the thing is not existent, like that, isn't it? So similarly, here Prabhupada is talking about how we have to transcend our material senses. Right? We spoke the other day about pratyaksha, anumana, and shabda. Right? Pratyaksha is by perceiving through the senses. Anumana is by thinking or by mental speculation, whereas shabda is by hearing. So similarly, through shabda praman, where we can think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What are we doing? Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita elsewhere, right? Situated in this material world, but not suffering the pangs of miseries of this material world. Because in our consciousness, we have transcended the three modes of material nature. Because we are not attached to enjoyment, to that extent, we are not also suffering due to the lack of anything in this world. And in this way, a devotee is able to maintain neutrality. A devotee is able to maintain sama, right? Shitoshna sukha dukkada. Agama painu anitya stam satikshashva bharata. So a devotee tolerates happy situations as well as situations of distress simply by engaging oneself in Krishna consciousness. That's what it is. Right? And how does one immerse oneself in the Supreme? Right? Prabhupada mentions here, one should always immerse oneself in the Supreme by chanting Hare Krishna, by hearing the glories of the Lord, by honoring Krishna Prasadam, by performing Arati for the Lord, by dovetailing all our activities in the service of the Lord, we can go ahead and be immersed in the Supreme. Like that. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, 5.27, 28. Vrishabhanu Kanya Mataji, you just now read, is it?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hari Bol. Smarshan Kritva Bahirvayam Chakshuschaivantere Prabho Pranapano Samo Kritva Nasabhyantaracharino Yatendriya Mano Buddhir Munir Moksha Parayana Vigattecha Bayakrodo Yah Sadha Mukta Eva Saha. Synonyms of word translation. Who will read now? Rohini Mataji, you want to read?
Mataji, may I read? Na?
Yeah, okay.
Vrishabhanu Mataji had to read.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Synonyms, na Mataji? Haan.
Yep.
Person, sense objects such as sound, kritva, keeping, bahihi, external, bhayam, bhayan, unnecessary, chakshu, eyes, cha, also, eva, certainly, antare, between, ruvoha, the eyebrows, prana, apana, prana, apana, up and down moving air, somehow in suspension, kratva, keeping, nasa abhayatra, within the nostrils, karinao, blowing, yata, control, indriya, senses, manaha, mind, buddhihi, intelligence, munihi, the transcendentalist, moksha, for liberation, prajna,
Parayana.
parayanaha, being so destined, vigata, having discarded, icha, wishes, bhaya, fear, krodha, anger, yaha, one who, sada, always, muktaha, liberated, iva, certainly, saha, he is. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breath within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. When one is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. This particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, the Lord gives instruction to Arjuna as to how one can come to that position by the practice of the mysticism of yoga known as Ashtanga Yoga, which is divisible into the eightfold procedure called Yam, Niyam, Dhyan, Asan, Pratyaham, Pratyaharu,
Pranayam.
Pranayam, yes, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the sixth chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed, and at the end of the fifth, it is only preliminary explained. One has to drive out the sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by the pratyahara process in yoga, and then keep the vision of the eyes between the two eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eyes altogether because then there is every chance of falling asleep. Nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely because then there is
Hazard of.
Where it is. Nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely because then there is hazard of being attracted by sense objects. The breathing movement is restrained within the nostrils by naturalizing the up moving and down moving air within the body. By practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. This yoga process helps one become free from the all kind of fear and anger, and thus feel the presence of the super soul in the transcendental situation. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of executing yoga principles. This will be thoroughly explained in the next chapter. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. This is better way of controlling the sense than by Ashtanga Yoga. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So very difficult, isn't it? It sounds also so difficult to understand. What are we supposed to do? Where we are supposed to focus on the tip of the nose, and we should not have our eyes fully open, nor are we supposed to have the eyes fully closed, half closed eyes, focusing on the tip of the nose, this and that. It's very, even if we are able to get the bodily posture correct, right? We cannot get our mind into control, because the mind is racing on so many thoughts, right? So it will just be a physical exercise for us, at least in Kali Yuga. In the earlier yugas, people were they had the capability to focus on one particular thing. They used to sit for hours in the yajna, and then they used to offer the ahuti in the fire sacrifice, and then they used to get pure ingredients like ghee. But nowadays in Kali Yuga, we don't get pure ingredients. We don't have the patience to sit through entire yajna sacrifice, right? If you have to sit for 2 hours yajna also, like we feel so tired, and the smoke is like we coughing all the way, right? We're not able to focus on what we are doing, because all the external circumstances, we are so bewildered by it that we lose the spirit of why we are doing what we are doing. So that is why Prabhupada is saying very easy to control our senses simply by engaging in devotional service, rather than try to follow this Ashtanga Yoga process. And Krishna reconfirms this in the last verse of this chapter, which is Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwaram Suhurnam Sarvabhutanam Nyatva Mam Shanti Mrichati. Okay, Rohini Mataji, go ahead. Synonyms.
Pranam Mataji, can I read the shloka?
Pranams. Yes, go ahead.
Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvalokam suradam sarvabhutanam nyatva mam shantim rachati. Synonyms: Bhoktaram, the beneficiary; yajna, of sacrifices; tapasam, and penances and austerities; sarvaloka, of all planets and the demigods thereof; Maha Ishwaram, the Supreme Lord; Suradam, the benefactor; Sarva, of all; Bhutanam, the living entities; Nyatva, thus knowing; Mam, me, Lord Krishna; Shantim, relief from material pangs; Rachati, one achieves. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport: the conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy of all anxious to attain peace in the material world, but they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because he is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than he. He is greater than the greatest of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.7, the Supreme Lord is described as Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This fifth chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya, illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which helps one control the senses in every respect and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage of Brahma Nirvana. The eightfold yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is a gradual process of elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to a human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Karma Yoga or action is in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So next chapter will be the important chapter where Krishna is going to declare Bhakti Yoga as the highest of all yogas. And after that, 7 to 12 will be the actual jewel of Bhagavad Gita. And then 13 to 18 will be more of Sankhya Yoga, Jnana Yoga, like that. Right? So in the last verse, actually, Lord Krishna himself summarizes how Bhakti Yoga is performed. Bhakti Yoga is performed with the consciousness of understanding that the Lord is the CEO, right? The Lord is the controller, the supreme controller. The Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and the Lord is the supreme owner, right? And the Lord is the supreme friend. Isn't it? Suhridam Sarva Bhutana. So this is said to be the peace formula. Prabhupada mentions in the purport, isn't it? That this is the peace formula for everybody. Why? Because if something is not within my control, then it leads to anxiety, right? I go into anxiety. Oh, what will happen? This is not under my control. Oh, how will the events turn into, like that? But then when we realize that the Lord is in control of everything, whatever I'm not in control of, the Lord is already in control. Not only that, but the Lord is also my supreme friend. Right? Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Right? He is the best friend of every living entity. In such a case, a person who is in control will ensure that his best friend is taken care of in all circumstances, isn't it? So being the best friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or rather, the Lord being our best friend, right? So we can be rest assured that whatever happens with us, it has to be under the will of the Supreme Lord. It has to be as per his will. And it has to be what is most beneficial for us, because the Lord is going to give us something that is most beneficial for us, right? Although we may not perceive some things as being beneficial for us due to our myopic view, due to our limited understanding, but we should understand that in the long scheme of things, or in the greater vision, or in the complete picture, everything that the Lord does for us is the best thing for us, right? And always it is important to remember how Parikshit Maharaj, initially his body was protected by the Lord, but later when he was killed by Takshak, or when he was destined to die in 7 days, at that time he died, isn't it? Then did the Lord not protect him? The Lord did protect him, because the Lord gave him his own remembrance, and that is ultimate protection. Otherwise, the material body can be saved, but it is subject to death at some point of the time or the other, right? Like, for example, somebody is going swimming, and is going through the bigger currents, and is about to drown. But if that person is supposed to live in that particular body for a longer time, there'll be somebody who will jump and save him, right? But when the time comes, right, irrespective of whether we have gone deep in the waters, or whether we are in the shallow water, doesn't matter, right? When the time comes, all of us have to leave the body. Doesn't mean that we are very whimsical in our behavior. We just go and risk our life. No. So because this body has been given to us by the Lord, we have to take care of the body, but not take care of the body in the sense as all in all. Like Prabhupada gives example in one lecture, of the cage and the bird, right? It is important to take care of the cage also. The cage is not taken care of. How will the bird be inside, right? You have to take care of the cage. But if you simply take care of the cage and not feed the bird will die. Then what is the purpose of the cage? So a proper balance in taking care of the cage, also cleaning it regularly, and also feeding the bird. Like that, if we strike a proper balance, then that is supposed to be the way we are supposed to action in Krishna consciousness, even in our material activities. Right? We take care of our physical body, knowing well that our body is going to help us engage in the devotional service of the Lord. At the same time, I work to ensure that I am always situated in the platform of Jivera Swarupaya Krishnera Nityadas. I'm the eternal servant of the Lord, and I can be permanently happy only being situated in that particular position. So with that, we will end chapter number 5. Granth-raj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So let's quickly move forward on to teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Today we will start with chapter number 1, which is teachings to Rupa Goswami. We saw in the prologue several pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which actually enthusiasts, right? We want to see what are the various teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not different from Krishna. He's appeared in Kali Yuga. So his instructions are more relevant for us being situated in Kali Yuga, isn't it? So let's start with teachings to Rupa Goswami. Again, we'll reiterate that whatever teachings Krishna gave to Arjuna that we read in the 5th chapter, and whatever teachings Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving Rupa Goswami, they're all non-different. Why? Because they all are going to help us transform to work in the platform of spiritual consciousness, to work for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, right? So there will be practical demonstrations in the next couple of chapters where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to personally instruct Rupa Goswami. So let's start this most auspicious study of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami, the younger brother of Sanatana Goswami, went to Prayag, the modern city of Allahabad, with his younger brother Vallabha. When the two brothers heard that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they both became very much pleased and went to see the Lord. So here the background is Rupa Goswami and Anupam, right? His brother, also called Vallabh, Sri Vallabh. They are going to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sanatana Goswami is still stuck in Navadvip, right? He's still in the prison now. Now he has to find a way by which he can break the shackles of the prison house and go and meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's still not met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? So only Rupa Goswami and Anupam, his brother, they are fortunate enough to go and meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag, right? Prayagraj. That is the confluence of the 3 rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, right? Even in Prabhupada Lilamrita, there is mention of Prayag, wherein Prabhupada used to go regularly with his disciples, and at that place there is always an assembly of all the sadhus, the confluence of Ganga, Jamuna, and Saraswati, where Prabhupada ensured that book distribution goes on. Because generally people are so much in the mode of sattva guna there. There is a lot of scope for becoming devotees. So this Prayagraj is a place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually met Rupa Goswami and Anupam, or Sri Vallabha, his name is. Okay, let's move forward. Anyone wants to read? Somebody who's not read? Okay, now Kishori Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Shri
At
Rupa,
that time,
Hare Krishna. Shri Rupa Goswami, the younger brother of Sanatana Goswami, went to Prayaga, the modern city of Allahabad, with his younger brother Vallabha. When the two brothers heard that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they both became very much pleased and went to see the Lord. At that time, the Lord was on his way to visit the temple of Bindu Madhava. On the way to the temple, the Lord was chanting and dancing, and thousands of people were following him. Some were crying and some were laughing, some were dancing and some were singing, and some were falling on the ground, offering obeisances to the Lord. And all of them were roaring the holy
holy name Krishna, Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. The holy name Krishna, Krishna. It is said that in spite of being at the confluence of the rivers Ganges and Yamuna, Prayaga was never flooded until the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at which time the city was flooded by love of Krishna. The two brothers, Rupa Goswami and Vallabha, stayed aloof in an uncrowded place and witnessed the great crowd and wonderful scene. When the Lord danced, he raised his arms and shouted, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. The people all about him were astonished to see his activities. Indeed, the wonderful scene is difficult to describe. After visiting the temple, the Lord accepted prasadam, food offered to the deity, at the house of a Deccanist southern Brahmana with whom he was acquainted. While sitting alone at the Brahmana's home, the Lord was visited by Rupa Goswami and Vallabha. From a distance, two brothers fell down on the ground to offer obeisances, and they chanted many Sanskrit verses from the scriptures. When the Lord saw Rupa Goswami offering obeisances before him, he became very much pleased and said, My dear Rupa, please get up. The Lord then informed Rupa Goswami of the causeless mercy of Krishna upon him, for Krishna had just deliver him from the materialistic way of life, which is based simply on pounds, shillings, pence. The Lord accepted the two brothers as his devotees, and he cited a verse from the scriptures stating that the Lord will not accept a Brahmana who has studied the four Vedas if he is not a devotee, but he will accept someone from a very low family if he is a pure devotee. Then the Lord embraced the two brothers, and out of his causeless mercy, he touched their heads with his lotus feet. Blessed in this way, the brothers offered prayers to the Lord. Mm, sorry. Prayers to the Lord in their own words. The prayers indicated that Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, that he had assumed a fair complexioned form Gauranga, and that he was the most magnificent incarnation of Krishna because he was dissipating love of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami also recited a verse later found in the book Govinda Lilamrit 1.2. Mataji, will you be able to please sing for me?
योऽज्ञानमत्तम्बुवनं दयालु उल्लाघयन्नपि अकरोत् प्रमत्तम् स्वप्रेम सम्पत्सुदयाद्भुतेऽहं श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्यममुं प्रपद्ये.
Thank you, Mataji. Let me surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the greatest, most merciful personality of Godhead. He delivers those who are merged in ignorance and offers them the highest gift, love of Krishna, and thus makes them mad after Krishna consciousness. After this incident, Vallabha Bhatta invited the Lord go to the other side of the Ganges, and the Lord went on this trip. Rupa Goswami accompanied the Lord, and indeed whatever the Lord went, Rupa Goswami would follow him and stay with him. Because the Lord felt inconvenienced in crowded places, he asked Rupa Goswami to accompany him to a place on the banks of the Ganges known as Dashavamedha Ghata. For 10 days, he instructed the Rupa Goswami about the truth of Krishna, the principle of devotional service, and the transcendental mellows relationship with Krishna. All of these was described and full details so that in the future Rupa Goswami could distribute the science of Krishna in his book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Srila Rupa Goswami described this incident in the first verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in which he speaks of causeless mercy of Lord upon him. The Supreme Lord is cognizant. Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, this ghat I saw and I was paying my obeisances to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I told my parents also about this Dashamedha ghat. I went to Banaras Mataji last 2022. Yes, Mataji.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, so in only 10 days actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent with Rupa Goswami, wherein he taught entire science of Bhakti Yoga. And he told Rupa Goswami two instructions at that time only. One is to write books on Bhakti Yoga. And that is why we have these two books, which are Upadeshamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? Which Prabhupada has prepared a summary study, which we studied, which is the nectar of instruction and nectar of devotion, isn't it? And then second is about the transcendental mellows. That means relationship with Krishna. That that is actually covered in what is that? Madhurya. There is another pastimes wherein different rasas with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with different rasas are described by Rupa Goswami. Madhurya Kadambini, right? So in Madhurya Kadambini, the various rasas are being described by Rupa Goswami. So one is about devotional service, and the other is about the different rasas of or relationships with Krishna. All this have been described by Rupa Goswami in his books. Here Prabhupada is mentioning about Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is nectar of devotion, wherein the entire, it is described as the boat, right? Where under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, this human body is the most effective boat to actually cross over the ocean of material existence, Bhava Sagar, and go into the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That means the ocean of transcendental bliss. Okay, so okay, let's end here. So tomorrow we'll continue from the Supreme Lord is cognizant and all powerful, and by his causeless mercy, he empowers a living entity to receive his mercy. From there, we'll continue tomorrow. Right? Na bhavet grahim indriyehi. Right? The nectar of devotion, that's a beautiful verse which says, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grahim indriyehi. With our own material senses, by our own mental speculation, by our own senses, we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. However, when we serve the Lord and please the Lord, then the Lord will reveal himself to us. Sevon mukehi jivado swayameva surati adaha. So this is the way we receive transcendental knowledge, right? That we serve the Lord becomes pleased, and then the Lord will reveal the transcendental knowledge in our heart. So that is the way of obtaining transcendental knowledge. All right? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudeva ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya ki jai. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So Dandak pranams to all. In case anyone has any queries or wants to share anything, then you may raise your hands and share. Like Motherji was mentioning, she went to the Diksha to meet the God. Very wonderful. In Benares, right? So yeah, anyone else wants to share anything or has any queries, you may ask. Otherwise, we'll end the session now. And then we'll meet tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock for Brahma Muhurta chanting. And then we will meet at 12 o'clock for our teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So tomorrow is Friday, yeah? So we'll meet tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudeva ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So tomorrow we'll start with the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And here we will continue with chapter number 1, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing Rupa Goswami. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Let's do a quick 5 minutes kirtan. Namo Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Gurudev, Jai Jai Gurudev. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Ram Sankirtan ki Jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Nandapuri Vaishnava Vrind ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. All right. So I see Rohini Mataji, Monimala Mataji, now Kishori Mataji, Karpagavali Mataji, Harjeet Mataji. Thank you all for joining in. We'll meet tomorrow for our study sessions in the afternoon. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you.